The breaking news story that we're following for you, everyone, is a National Industrial Court today, and Justice O.Y. Anuwe has granted the order as filed by the Federal Ministry of Justice on behalf of the Federal Government of Nigeria and the Office of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice against the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress. The federal government had gone to the court to ask for relief, saying that there is a matter of urgency in the sense that if the labor goes on strike, there will be an adverse effect on the students who are presently writing WAEC examination. ASU strike will affect the situation in the education sector, and the health sector also will be affected. And the court says, in its view, is a situation of extreme urgency that will require the intervention of the court. And so the court today had restrained the NUC and the TUC, NLC and the TUC from embarking on the planned industrial strike action of any nature, and has ordered the defendant, which was absent because an ex parte, from going ahead with that plan. As we speak, we understand that the federal government is meeting with the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress, led by Mr. Joe Ajaero. There was another meeting yesterday with the Trade Union Congress, led by Festus Osifo. All of this is about the statement made, those three words pronounced by President Bola Tinubu. He said, subsidy is gone. And then all of this is happening. Let's get perspectives on perhaps the way to go in all of this. I'm being joined by Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu, who is the ADC presidential candidate in the 2023 presidential election. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
And it's good to see you after the election stress.
Yeah, you can see I'm in retirement now and enjoying retirement.
All right. Did you see this scenario coming out when the president made that statement? Did you see this kind of ripple effect?
Yes, it was expected. Obviously, the president was handed a banana peel by the outgoing president, President Buhari, who failed to provide for subsidy beyond June when he was leaving office. He obviously did not want to deal with that, and he pushed on that responsibility to the incoming government. And we also understand that the Nigerian economy is in tatters. The government doesn't have the funding, and NNPC is in a state of near comatose. They will crumble if they continue to fund subsidy. They are said to be owed over 2 trillion naira as at the moment. So President Tinubu just announced or informed Nigerians of the situation he was meeting. And I believe Nigerians knew or were aware, but were not aware. They knew that this subsidy was not funded for. It was in the papers last couple of months, but people just assumed no government will want to deal with it that way. They expected a different approach, a structured approach to this, right? But what many people fail to understand that President Buhari in 2016, 2017, with Dr. Kachikwu as the GMD of NNPC, had removed subsidy. Subsidy was gone for 1 year, and they had put in place a modulated pricing scheme. And that was when prices went up at that time to about 147 thereabouts, you know. And market forces determined the prices we were paying at that time. Then NNPC went from importing about 90% of petroleum products in Nigeria to about 35% of products. The marketers were now importing products because there was the commercial factors were determining how they were selling products. So they did this for about a year, no subsidy for about a year.
But it was being called another name on that recovery.
It was a modulated pricing scheme, no subsidy whatsoever.
But the federal government was still giving out some money.
Absolutely no dime was given out for a year.
There are those who believe that this is why the agitation about the issue of corruption within the subsidy regime came up. There are those who feel that there is not being a transparency in the dispensation of such funds.
I absolutely agree. So you know what happened? After a year, right, prices went up. And President Buhari, when prices go up, you are supposed to increase your prices. President Buhari did not want to increase the prices, and as such, he wanted to cap the prices at the lower price point. The marketers were losing money, and the marketers said, if you do this, we will no longer import. So NNPC at that point became the sole importer of petroleum products. I think Dr. Barrow was then the GMD of NNPC, and then after a year, for the first time, President Buhari now approved subsidy payments. And since then, we ballooned from almost about 35 million liters per day to a point where it spikes sometimes up to 87 million or 90 million liters. So then people are saying, because if you want to get the real numbers of what we're actually consuming, if you look at the historical record of what they were consuming when market forces were determining what was being imported, you will see the actual figures. And at that time, it was about 30-something million liters. So we cannot rationalize or explain the consumption we have today.
NNPC pushes out about 60 million liters per day.
And sometimes it spikes over 80-something million liters.
That's been, in fact, for several years, there's been that debate. No actual figure or official figure on the consumption of Nigerians because of this issue of how much of those fuel that goes out of our borders.
Correct.
But the question is that we're in a dire strait.
Absolutely.
Where do you see this president being? Now, they've gone to court. They seek a relief from court to say Labour should not go on strike, because if that strike happened tomorrow, as planned by Labour, it will nearly shut down the economy.
Well,
do you think so?
Yes. The Nigerian economy does not need the approach of Labour. I call it a knee-jerk approach. I don't trust anything Labour does. Labour knew that this president campaigned on this. The Labour candidate campaigned on this. They endorsed Labour candidates, so they knew that this was going to happen. Labour knew that this government, the APC government, did not fund or provide for subsidy in the budget beyond June. Labour never said anything. The organized Labour in the oil and gas sector also knew this. No one said anything. So the incoming or the new president has now informed Nigeria that this is the situation. It's actually a banana peel for him, because he has to take the hard decision of telling Nigerians, this is the situation, right? We have an outgoing National Assembly, and there's no time for him to react, to start saying, preparing for that subsidy. And he has always said he's not going to deal with subsidy. Subsidy is gone. Let's go back to what was happening in 2016, 2017. That's the right approach. Now, but we know that there's no way a nation that God blessed with oil and gas resources can afford to remove subsidy completely. What is the problem? You alluded to it, which is the corruption inherent in the system. What should we do? We should straitjacket, ring fence that system. We should go after all those who have abused the system. Once we identify them, prosecute these people diligently, you will remove the corruption in that system and reintroduce subsidy.
Yeah, so now here's the question. Are these people Nigerians?
Absolutely. They are all part of the ecosystem.
Do we know them?
The people in the system know them. We know them. Tell you what, if you x-ray the data right now to see who are those that are being allocated huge quantums of petroleum products, whose oil and gas assets, via petroleum stations, petrol stations and what have you, are not commensurate to what you are giving to them. They know these people. They know them in the system.
There are those who are also, there are a lot of claims and allegations flying around about how this racket goes on. From even those who are in government who aid these corrupt practices. Those who, in fact, there are those who are claiming that, in fact, there's those in government who even have petrol stations outside of Nigeria who are getting the subsidized product into their own filling station and profiting from it.
Let me shock you.
So, but the question is that who's got the guts to go after these people?
Okay.
They are called the cabals of the oil and gas sector.
Let me shock you. These people are richer than some state governments. They have enough resources to put a government in place and to bring a government down. They have co-conspirators in the judiciary, in the armed forces, in law enforcement, in the regulatory and supervisory agencies. They are all around us. We see them. We know them. But obviously, you heard what Okonjo-Iweala said, how they went after her for going after them. They are so powerful. They have what you call blood money, silly money, the kind of money that can make your head spin. Imagine someone who takes a truck of 33,000 liters of PMS that he ordinarily will make 300,000 naira if he sold in Nigeria, and he makes 16 million naira on that same truck. Those who get coastal allocations in the vessel, they round trip that and they make $10 million. Now imagine that someone is getting that once a week. Imagine, isn't that blood money? They have so much money that they can afford to bribe anyone. And that is what President Tinubu is dealing with now. Do you stare these people in the face or do you back down? But tell you what, in choosing to stare them in the face, the Nigerian people are suffering because they said no more subsidy at this time, because that's how they choose to deal with them. But
the average person may not understand the intricacies, the dynamics of these corruptors, because these people that you have mentioned, they've largely rolled on the backs, on the pains of average Nigerians to say, if you remove subsidy, the people will fight back. How to then manage the consequence of removal of subsidy? For several years, that debate has gone on, that the evil within the oil and gas sector is this subsidy. Well, there is no subsidy on kerosene. There is no subsidy on diesel. And these are sometimes the product that the poor people use the most. But petrol will affect the generality of the economy because it's mostly used by the middle class. And the upper class. So the question is, if you were in Tinubu's shoes today, how would you respond to this? How would you fight these people?
Very simple. First of all, I will not remove subsidy. I will suspend the subsidy regime for a 3 to 6 month period. I will get an incoming NSA of impeccable character to investigate this subsidy regime for backwards up to 15 years. Prosecute these people diligently, take them on, bring them to book, and then bring in place processes and protocols that ensure that no one can abuse this subsidy regime anymore. Now, if that is done, after you've done that, you can then reintroduce subsidy after 3 to 6 months. But with a caveat, I will no longer give subsidized products to marketers at the tank or give it to them at the vessel. I will ensure that you want this product to sell, you want it delivered to a filling station, I will have fleeting companies that are bonded, competent companies who have the requisite technology that they can track their trucks, that they can ensure they can use modern day technology to ensure that nobody can take that truck anywhere other than the...
But see what, Mr. Kachikwu, those who believe that we should be looking in the way of the alternatives, CNG, less fossil fuel consuming vehicles and products that will allow us to be able to help the average person, the poor, improve on transportation, get some palliatives, low-hanging, some immediate, some intermediate, some long-term measures that is also safe for the environment. These are some of the arguments that some people are making. But in the immediate, what do you think Bola Tinubu will do? Because now, this ex parte injunction will expire. If it doesn't agree, the federal government does not agree with Labour, we're just pushing the evil day forward.
Let me respond to CNG. CNG again, what happens tomorrow if the gas processing companies become comatose like our refineries? We're back to square one. We ought to deal with the root cause of our problems, which is the human being, the Nigerian individual. Where they fail to deliver in their responsibilities, we ought to address that. Changing technology or changing fuels is not our problem. We ought to deal with the Nigerian factor in our situation. President Tinubu at this point must put in place immediately social intervention to cushion the effects, from transport vouchers to hardship allowance to increasing the minimum wage on an interim basis, until we are able to streamline, midwife a new subsidy process or remove subsidy, and then Nigerians can enjoy the benefits of our savings. This is a corruption reading process, but we cannot just say remove subsidy and Nigerians are paying a huge price and we let the people who have abused this system go scot-free. This is what they want. This is what they expect. And President Tinubu must not do this. He must go after these people and set a strong precedent.
All right. Let me take you to one activity today that the president took part in. He has told security and intelligence agencies in the country on the importance of information and intelligence sharing. and he's told them to not allow disharmony or to hoard intel amongst themselves. The president he took a tour around the National Counterterrorism Center. It was led by the National Security Advisor, Babangana Muguno. Take a listen to what both men said at our tour.
The effort of the entire armed forces of this country must be put together in a way that will form one single focus on securing the country. You can't have a disharmony in an orchestra of this security plan. We must focus on one tunnel, coordinate shared information, shared intelligence, coordinate and work harder. Then you cannot hoard those information.
You cannot hoard information. That is what he's telling those who are at the helm of affairs in the issue of counterterrorism and the issue of intelligence gathering in the country. Now, I'll allow you to get just an insight to what the NSA Babangana Muguno have to say to this.
You realize the promises you made to the Nigerian people during your election. The first place you visited, being the National Counterterrorism Center, is a manifestation of the desire of collective security agencies to ensure there's harmonization in whatever we do so that you get filtered, timely reports on your table as quickly as possible.
All right. Now, so Nigeria is at a point where there needs to be movement. We're hearing attacks in Sokoto, in Zamfara, in Plateau. And the question will be, apart from dealing with the economy, interestingly, Bola Tinubu is faced with the issue of economy first. Now, there are security issues that came few days after he got into office. He needs to tackle. Those who believe that these are two major issues that he cannot politicize. He needs to get the most professional people in terms of security and getting the right persons to work and getting it right. What would you be saying to him tonight?
Well, I'll be telling the president that he started on a right note by with his approach. Visiting this center today, it shows that he's interested in security, understands that security plays a huge role in our nation today and the interconnect between security and the economy. But he must not make the mistake the former president made. The former president was a president who seemed to relish his different agencies fighting each other, right? They were working in an uncoordinated manner. And as such, you saw the Nigerian people suffering. You saw a failure of intelligence. One agency will have intelligence that will help another agency, but they will not get that intelligence. There were those who believed that Monguno, being a senior office, being senior to the service chiefs, that he will have gotten their cooperation. But when he was not really getting their cooperation or respect, what did President Buhari, as a former Army General, do? Absolutely nothing. What must President Buhari do? The office of the NSA is the clearinghouse, is the office that represents that designation, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. That is why the president has a national security advisor to give him the briefs that represent that office. So if the president gives the security agencies, the service chiefs, this idea that he does not really care about his NSA, they will disrespect his NSA. But if they understand that his NSA represents him on all security matters, that they report reports to the NSA, that his briefs, the important briefs, everything he understands is the NSA that gives him that, they will respect and react accordingly.
Perhaps, I mean, I've read a few articles. Interestingly, there are a whole lot of them over the weekend that you will see. There are those who believe that the NSA should be the person who has gotten to the very peak of his career, and that those who are advocating for a non-military person at the helm of affairs in that office at the NSA, and that those who believe that our problem is, and I've had guests on the program who said, look, our problems are more internal policing issues and not much of military or external aggression and such, that we should look inwards into people who are in the intelligence and the policing community, and those who have gotten to the peak of their career, and most especially someone who has not been in politics.
Okay, so if we look at the office of the NSA outside of Nigeria, what we see is that you typically have, in America, you had military people and you had civilians. In Nigeria, we had the same military and civilians. What we are looking at is, at a time like this, who should we have in that office? We must have somebody who understands what this problem is, someone who is not politicized, someone who is of impeccable and unimpeachable character, someone who will get the respect of the military and civilians and the respect of those in government, someone who has the willpower, use that word carefully, to deal with the hard and knotty issues.
I hope President Tinubu will be able to get this done. And I mean, economy, security, these are key issues and areas that he needs to fill, and hoping that he gets it right for the sake of Nigerians.
He must get politics out of it to get it right.
Thank you so much. Dumebi Kachikwu, presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2023 presidential election. Thank you so much indeed for the insight that you've shared tonight.
Thanks for having me, Shehu.
Good afternoon.